Welcome to Civic Engines. How are you, Dave?
Good. How are you, James?
I'm doing well.
So what are we talking about today?
Today we are talking about the American education system and, the Department of Education, there's talks of it potentially getting cut. And us as Chad libertarians don't really have a high opinion of the education system in its current state. So we're going to talk about, as maybe we're getting a head start on the reform of the education system that's inevitable in the U.S.
I'm a communitarian, James.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Me too.
Similar.
Anyway.
So what are your thoughts as far as they're doing cuts for the education system right now? So it's in context.
They're cutting the whole department is my understanding.
Do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing, and why do you think that?
I think it is, I think that our education system is already too uniform and doesn't perform very well. And the fact that it's centrally, the curriculum centrally defined, and the funding is kind of pushed through that, exacerbates that issue. And I don't think education even should be centralized and everyone should be studying the same thing. So that's kind of the 30,000-foot view that I already don't really like our system.
So as far as the standards go, like back in the day, it happened during Obama too. Where was there core curriculum?
Yeah, the core math. There was No Child Left Behind. I don't remember if that was with Bush or Obama, but basically the idea was, some kids aren't performing very well, so we need to make sure that the class as a whole progresses at the same pace, which is absolutely terrible because
we're not going to fail anyone anymore.
Everyone's going to slow down to the lowest common denominator, and we're not going to move on to the next unit until everyone is on the same page. And funny enough, kind of naturally with Udemy, with these online courses, we're already moving in a direction with online education that people can move at their own pace, and it's obviously way more preferable. It's not going to, if I am a slow reader, sometimes I have to read things 2 or 3 times. Why is the whole class waiting on me to read through this chapter when someone else can blow through 3 or 4 chapters and comprehend it totally fine? Mm-hmm. And I'll surpass them in math. And, it's like the worst of all worlds is for everyone to have to slow down. The kids that would be advanced are bored out of their mind and not paying attention. And, people are individualistic. They have different interests. They have different things that they would like to learn. And that kind of goes into the other issues that are less systemic with our education system. That I'm sure people have heard that our school system is actually modeled after the Prussian factory model. And so during the Industrial Revolution, the Prussian government had an interest to make the population as industrious as possible. And so they kind of turned their education system into pumping out happy little factory workers. So think of some of the things unique to our schools. It's like, I mean that you wouldn't interact with outside of school. It's like everyone's sitting in a chair, everyone's sitting forward. You single file line from room to room. You have to raise your hand if you want to answer a question, even answer a question, let alone ask one. No. You have to ask permission to use the bathroom. But the most important thing is that you are graded, and you are graded on your capacity to regurgitate what the authority figure at the front of the room says. So however accurately you can regurgitate that determines your grade, your quality of how effective of a factory worker you'd be, and how advanced the skill sets that you'd be working on. I don't know.
Like, what subject matters would help a factory worker? Like, what do they... what did they have for like their curriculum back in the Prussian factory model?
Well, certainly math and arithmetic. And
Why would a factory worker need to know any of those?
Measurements.
Yeah, I suppose you had manual stuff back then.
And they used to have more manual classes like wood shop and auto shop.
But I wonder when it comes to mathematics, that pretty much is regurgitation, because there's only, for what they're teaching, there's only one correct answer, unless they're answering mathematical theorems, and doing that kind of.
Yeah, and it's weird because we
work.
kind of shoehorned this Prussian model from what was naturally a liberal arts education in the U.S. It was more about, it was post-Enlightenment with like, I think maybe one of the primary goals in kind of the prairie schoolhouse model was like literacy and reading the Bible and being a civilian, being, appreciating literature and, how do you form an identity around that? And so I think that is kind of why the literature tradition continued forward. And then as far as mathematics, that is just unambiguously useful in industry.
I don't know that it's bad.
That what's bad?
That the Prussian factory model is as applied in the U.S.
Well,
because
go ahead.
Math and science is what we're doing crappy on, right? And like modern day, now not to you and me possibly, but it would be considered that right now is our liberal arts golden age, right? I don't agree with that, but from most standards, there's inclusivity and everybody's doing these new inclusive liberal arts or whatever. You have more graduates certainly than college graduates than ever before, like something like 2,000 times more. Of course, there aren't that many jobs to go around. So, I mean, I think in one aspect that's correct, where like if you take the Prussian model and put it towards liberal arts, whereas it's not meant to be, then you're basically just regurgitating, and it completely defeats the purpose of liberal arts, whereas I think it did like for their purposes in math and stuff. I mean, in the military, we have a kind of system like that, like with ask permission and stuff, and that to me, when I was in it, seemed like it worked pretty well. Yeah, it seemed fair to everyone. Everybody raises their hand. Everybody, learned respect for one another and to wait, and like it's basically like learning values and whatnot. It may have taken away some individuality because that's the purpose of the military. So I'm wondering if it's just like the worst of two worlds that we have for our education, where the Prussian model in Prussia at the time possibly wasn't that bad, but bringing it here and what we applied it to is real bad. What's your thoughts on that?
I think it served its purpose at the time when there were all of these factories for people to fill into and have a dignified middle income job. My main problem with the Prussian model and why I don't think it serves us now is because it is authoritarian, and it's grading you on your ability to accurately regurgitate what the authority at the front of the room tells you, instructs on you.
Oh yeah.
And so you don't, unless you go into a university degree like engineering, and probably arguably medical, you're not going to learn critical thinking. You're not going to learn to like fail against a problem and challenge your own assumptions. It's more you're trained to like, well, this is what the authority, the expert says, and so I am the most intelligent person if I can reflect and regurgitate what they told me, and I don't even have to think about questioning, well, what if what they told me, is incomplete, or outdated or
Oh, they get annoyed. I mean, in
empirically-
college, professors, like if you like say something contradicting, and like say this doesn't make sense to me, and put a different viewpoint out,
Oh, yeah.
they get annoyed as hell.
Yeah, so it follows all the way through.
It's like, how dare you think for yourself? This is the way it is, and I'm telling you, and like, but this and this and this don't make sense.
Right.
Where if you point that out in a STEM field, you'd be like, oh wow, you're right. You know, you've got p values on your sample data, and
Well,
they
it's
fit
hard to
within
argue against the reality of like, does this thing fly or not? You know,
right.
So, but yeah, those teachers are in a discipline that interfaces, challenges itself against reality too, and so they've been humbled. And it's not some theoretical thing where they never had the chance to like be proven definitively by reality that they were wrong. They were, if they're an engineering professor, they were probably in the industry, and they did actually fail multiple times a day to get to the bottom of a problem before it finally worked. And so, again, they learned critical thinking, and they learned that it's not a failure on someone else's part because they take a different approach, because they disagree with the all-powerful teacher, and the teacher could and is wrong many, many, many times before they solve a problem, at least as far as engineering goes.